What's up, ladies and gents, Spoony Pizzas here, and welcome to my ultimate counter formation and tactics video in eFootball. In this tutorial I'm going to be sharing with you how to tactically beat almost every formation you could face in eFootball, and how to utilise each one and what you should be doing to break down your opposition. This guide is going to provide you with all the details you need to know to increase your goal count, as well as be defensively sound, conceding far fewer goals. Each of these counter formations weighs up your opponent's formation and tactic and will no doubt frustrate them, and it's going to help you score on a more regular basis. I will showcase every chance and goal for and against, and I'll talk about each one and how they came about and what you need to do to get the most out of each formation. I'll also be sharing my eFootball toolkit with you to help you build your greatest squad that you can possibly build with all the right play styles to ensure you can cover all the tactics in this video, as well as also a sort of statistics build of where you need to put your points when you're building a player. But first things first, you're going to need a possession based manager. I'm sure a lot of these formations will work with the other play styles, but I've not tested those, so I can't put them in this video. All of the formations are all tried and tested with a possession based manager, online and offline play over a long period of time. The first formation and tactic we're going to look at is the narrow 4-3-3, supported with a long ball counter manager in Arteta. This formation and tactic was made popular by Mednasa and is quite common to see online. You'll often come across against quick counter managers as well using this formation, which is also a popular choice. They will generally set defensive instructions to their single fullback or two fullbacks, and then counter target to their two front players. I played against a rank 55 in the world, dominated and won by using this formation here, and it's the one I continue to use when facing the narrow 4-3-3, long ball counter or quick counter playstyles, and I do have a lot of success with this. It's the 3-6-1. In this match I had to utilise Italian players, so I had a few misfits in terms of playstyles that I would generally use. In the wide area I had a cross specialist in Di Marco, but the problem with those is they stay too wide and Adriano up top would get a little bit isolated. So I'd recommend pretty much any other playstyle in those wide areas except for a whole player who behave pretty similar to the cross specialist. In defence I had an extra frontman in Bastoni, and I wouldn't recommend that either. You want build-up defenders either side of a destroyer who sits in the middle, or 3 build-up defenders is better if you're not comfortable defending 1v1 situations. In midfield you want an orchestrator and box-to-box midfielder with defensive instructions on both of those positions, and just ahead of those you want either a whole player or classic number 10 alongside a creative playmaker. Up front, I'd probably recommend a fox in the box. Let's take a look at how this looks on the field from a defensive point of view. You'll see I don't rush my box-to-box midfielder out towards his player. I wait for my orchestrator to drop back into position alongside him and then press in the right moment. He gets lucky with the deflection, but once again I was able to close him down, but he managed to wriggle free. But even when he gets into that scenario with some luck on his side, I'm able to defend this pretty comfortably and block the shot. And now I'm going to let this play out, and you're going to see he can't get anywhere near me in terms of ball possession or taking the ball back, and this is because I simply outnumber him in midfield considerably. You need to be brave on the ball and pick the right passes to build up your attack. You want to dominate the ball and make him feel like every time he loses the ball he's not going to see that ball for another 5 to 10 in-game minutes, and this is going to make your opponent hesitant, and because of that he's not going to make the right passes. Remember how I said I didn't want an extra frontman playstyle in my defence? This is the problem with any other playstyle outside of build-up. By using secondary press, it actually pulls him from defence, leaving me exposed. And if he was build-up, the player behind would have closed him down instead, and this was the closest he came to scoring in the match. This clip here highlights the reason why I'm not overly happy with the cross specialist in this formation and tactic. He's just simply too far out of the picture and not involved in the play enough. Now you're going to see why I opt for a fox in the box up front. He tries to make a pass overhead, but there's simply too many midfielders there for that sort of play. And then as soon as I get it into the fox in the box, like I say, he just drops off that front line, not too close to the defenders. And when you got someone like Adriano, he's just going to power that into the back of the net. He came close to equalising off the kickoff. My defender, I don't know why, but he wouldn't pass the ball when I told him to. And then Marco van Basten, who is actually behind my defender, managed to get the ball even though I'm in front. But I guess it's Marco van Basten and he does what he wants. You're going to get the most out of this formation and tactic if you take your time and pass effectively on the ball. You don't have to be amazing at passing the ball. As you can see here, it's pretty straightforward, but make sure you use those sort of fake passes which I teach you in my attacking tutorial. You've got to use those and sort of shift his players around. And here again, my sort of cross specialist is a little bit too far out of the picture, but he does actually manage to get a shot on goal. Next, we're going to be facing the narrow 4-4-2. Either play with 2 attacking midfielders or support strikers behind the 2 centre forwards. The counter to this is a narrow 4-5-1 or the Christmas tree formation. You don't need any instructions, but you'll need defensive fullbacks. If you don't have good defensive fullbacks, then I would recommend setting defensive instructions to your fullbacks if they're attacking or fullback finishers. Your centre-backs must be a build-up playstyle. In front of your defence must be 3 orchestrators, and ahead of those 1 box-to-box midfielder alongside any other playstyle, ideally a creative playmaker, but I couldn't leave out Blitzcurler Messi even though his playstyle is not recognised here. Ahead of them is a goal poacher to run in behind and push the defence back, leaving space for Messi and Bellingham to enter. You're going to see we get on the front foot quickly, delivering a dangerous ball into the box, but you're also going to see that your opponent is going to be probably direct, trying to hit you on the counter, and that's why it's really important to have defensive fullbacks protected by your 3 orchestrators to sit in front of that defence. That makes it very easy to stifle your opponent's attacks. So let's take a look at it from a defensive point of view. My opponent picks up the ball and then begins his attack. Plays the ball forward. Again, plenty of players there in defensive numbers to deal with that. Lots of players in the defensive area, and I'm able to win the ball back. Probably a little bit reckless moving my defender or my centre back across there to cover, but I didn't think I was in too much danger. Again, plenty of players back there, making it very hard for them to build up. But when I'm breaking out, you can see I've got acres of space. I'm able to play the cross in, and just unlucky to hit the post. With this Christmas tree formation, when he's trying to attack, it's suffocating. There's just so many midfielders and defenders around him. He just doesn't know what to do or doesn't know how to break it down. Every pass is pretty much intercepted pretty easily, and when I break forward, I've got acres of space to knock the ball around. So it just makes it a lot easier. You can sort of see him getting frustrated, throwing sliding tackles in, and basically I was just very, very comfortable and just toying with him in the end. You know, he's just trying to break forward. There's my defensive fullback to step out and win the ball. Going forward, like I said, just playing and toying with him. Watch this little ball here. Little cheeky ball into the channel, playing it back. Little fake shot there. Giving the ball away, but I knew I had it full control of this game. And this is a match where it's a 1-goal wins sort of scenario, but you can see how much dominance and how much space I've got. And he does actually change his formation at half-time because, you know, he could see the writing on the wall. He just couldn't break out. He couldn't do anything to my defence to really shake off all these midfielders, and the positioning of those defenders just makes it very, very difficult to actually do anything against. So actually it wasn't half-time. It was actually 26 minutes into the match. He changes it to this. So he's gone from a 4-4-2 to a 3-3-4. You know, he could see that he wasn't getting any joy, and once again, even with this formation, I was like, well, shall I go wide and try and exploit down the wings? But then I was like, actually no, I'm going to see how it goes and see if I can still maintain that sort of possession and deal with the threat. You know, him changing to a 4-man striker, or, you know, having 4 strikers up there, you know, I've still got 4 defenders in there protected by that those orchestrators. I didn't feel any need to change it, but I was sort of in my mind like, if I do start to struggle, I can just put Messi and Suarez wide, someone through the middle maybe. But then I was like, actually no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it, see how it is, see how the game plays out, and then make those changes. But I didn't need to make any changes. I was absolutely fine, and you're going to see that in this match. So you're going to still see the same sort of patterns that are going on here. You know, he tries to build up. Every player has a player on him. He managed to get some sort of space in the wide area, but that box-to-box midfielder coming back just to fill the gap. And then when I go forward, again, I've got acres of space, probably even more than I had before. I do lose the ball by being a little bit sloppy, but once again, the ball wide is covered by my defensive fullback. He tried mixing up his attacks by going long with a flicked header, but once again, easily tied it up. My player's breaking forward here, supported by Messi in that wide position. The little layoff, and unlucky with the shot there. Great save. So once again, the second half starts, and I was again really comfortable defensively. I get a throw in here, and a few simple passes, and it just opens up nicely, allowing me to score the winning goal. And the stats just go to show how much dominance I had in that game and how comfortable I was. Next is the 4-2-4 wide formation, and quite common nowadays. And to break this down, you'll need to once again opt for the 4-5-1 Christmas tree. Just dominating and suffocating those two midfielders, and you'll need to set defensive instructions to your fullbacks. In between those fullbacks, you'll need build-up play-style defenders or centre-backs, and ahead of those, ideally 3 orchestrators. But it was a Spanish event, and I wanted another player with high tight possession, ball control, and passing stats, so I put Iniesta in there, who is actually a creative playmaker. Ahead of those, ideally you need a box-to-box and creative playmaker, but here I had to utilise 2 classic number 10s, once again with those high tight possession, ball control, and passing stats. Ahead of those 2, I opted for Lionel Messi, but a fox in the box or a classic number 10 will be ideal here. Just someone to drop off the front and literally just swarm that midfield area and attacking midfield area, just to help create and build your play. Once again, you're going to dominate that sort of midfield area. So once you get past his sort of pressing from his front 4, you're going to have loads of space here just to move the ball around. And in here, I found the classic number 10, just finding a nice little pocket of space in between his defenders. And what you're going to often see is players like this play the ball wide early, but because you've got that man marking, your defender will step out and take the ball every single time. And when you are going forward towards his goal, you're going to know these big, fast, open spaces. Just take your time, just pick your passes, and just literally just walk towards the defence and watch them retreat, and just try and pick the right pass or shot. This time he opts for an over-the-top through ball, but again, with the man marking and defensive fullbacks, easily going to be able to cut that out. And with his players so far up the pitch now, there's big gaps in between his midfield and defence. Simple 1-2. Allows me to run through and goal. Actually hit the post here, but he wipes me out, giving me a penalty. I do love it when people opt for the 4-2-4, and this formation just sucks the life out of you. Again, defensive fullback, man marking, covers up sort of through ball, and this time hits the back of my player nicely. And luckily, as he runs through, hits the post, and then a bit more fortune, intercepts the pass into the back of the net. And at this time, you know, he gets the ball here, and he can see all his players are pretty much marked, and he sort of dithers on the ball, allowing me to pinch it. A simple 1-2 around the corner, and at this point he's just had enough. He wipes out Maradona and then quits. If your opponent opts for a wide 4-3-3 with a right wing forward and left wing forward, then you need to opt for a 4-5-1 wide formation with defensive instructions on both your DMFs. So 1 orchestrator and 1 box to box. Set those to defensive. Set man marking with your defensive fullbacks on both of your opponent's wingers. Any striker playstyle will do here, but I take a mix and see what is working best for you. In the wide areas, prolific wingers or roaming flanks will do nicely. If you're wondering why I've got a substitution happening on 0 minutes, it's because I referred to my guide of formations and tactics and counter formations, and basically I had to change my formation a little bit just so I could basically dominate and win this game much easier than I would have done if I chose my other formation, which would have been the 3-6-1. So yeah, like I said, I made the adjustments and straight away scored. And it wasn't long, straight from their kickoff, that I actually grabbed the second. And then Blitzkrieg and Messi using the #1 skill that I keep telling everyone about in my top 3 skills video, adding a third. And the match ending in a 6-0 victory, facing 0 shots. When facing a 4-4-2 wide formation, I'd recommend the 4-5-1 with defensive fullbacks, and you do not need any instructions. Here in midfield, I opted for 2 orchestrators and 1 creative midfielder in Ronaldinho. And then in the wide areas, you just want either prolific wingers or roaming flanks. Up top, I opted for a goal poacher, but any sort of striker should do in this scenario. But just make sure you do have those fullbacks that are defensive minded. Because you've got 5 across that midfield, don't be sort of hesitant to press at the earliest opportunity. And it's because of this I was able to steal in and score the first goal. This was on legend difficulty. This here highlights the importance of having those defensive fullbacks. Beckham lays the ball off, and as I'm pressing, my defensive fullback there just steps in to pass the ball to Vinicius Jr., who goes on to have a crack from range. They equalise with me being a little bit daft in defence here. But eventually, I was able to get the winner. Had some really good moves and good attacking play, where I was got into really good places, but just that final ball was just a little bit lacking on a few occasions. Here, I just couldn't quite square it properly. And I was sort of toying with them with Messi, going on the outside, whip cross, just didn't find anyone in the box. Nice little flowing move here, giving you an idea of just what to expect with this formation. But eventually I was able to cut the ball out high up the pitch and drill one into the bottom corner with Van Nistelrooy. Whenever you face a 3 at the back formation, whether it's a 3-5-2, a 3-6-1 or 3-4-3, always opt for a 4-2-4 with a target man ideally. Set counter target to your right wing forward or left wing forward to overload the flanks, and you could even set defensive instructions to those 2 defensive midfielders if you want. If you find their midfield presses too much, this is where a target man will be useful for long balls up to him to build your attack, and you'll often find yourself in a 4 attackers versus 3 defenders situation. Don't try to play through that midfield 6-0 with 2 defenders, else you're going to run into problems. So this was actually a 3-6-1 formation that I came up against, and as you can see, leading at half time by 5-0. I then went on to face a 3-4-3 narrow sort of formation, and here I'd recommend setting defensive instructions to those 2 defensive midfielders. Reason being is because their support strikers are going to fill into the holes, so that was my sort of concern, and that's why I set those 2 to defensive. And then counter target on my left wing forward and right wing forward positions. So they started really well. They scored straight pretty much off the kickoff. Nice little bit of play there to give them a 1-0 lead. And it took me ages to break them down, like 48 minutes into the second half. Just found that I couldn't quite make that final pass. But eventually, here Adriano should make that pass. It was like that all game. But this time I was able to pinch it back and then get the equaliser. And then there's that counter target there, this time making the pass and tapping into the net. A comfortable victory in the end, but it just took a while to break them down. So against a wide 3-5-2 formation, you want to set defensive to your fullbacks. So put those defensive instructions on your fullbacks, and then you want counter target on your left wing forward and right wing forward positions. And then just exploit those wide areas, which is what you're going to see here, into my support striker, into my left wing forward, and then look for those crosses into the box for the tap in. Or if you've got a goal poacher, use through ball from the wide area into your support striker or wide area into your goal poacher. And I end up winning this game comfortably 8-1. The 4-5-1, the formation that you want to use to counter this, is the 3-5-2, which is what you're seeing here. There's no instructions on this formation or tactic. I have two build-up play style defenders, and Tony Adams is a destroyer in the middle. Just ahead of them, I've got 2 orchestrators. In the wide areas, I've got roaming flanks or prolific wingers. It doesn't really matter. Through the middle, you could go for a creative playmaker here. Don't go for a whole player. or a classic number 10, because they're going to be too high up the pitch, and you don't want that. You want them sort of just dropped off, you know, linking the play between the orchestrators and your front line. Up top, I'd recommend a goal poacher, and as a support striker, a creative playmaker or hole player. Just depends on how things are going. Just try and switch it up if things aren't going well. Now, if your opponent is playing a 5-3-2 or a narrow 5-2-3, then I would recommend a 3-6-1 formation. Very narrow, just stifle that midfield area. And if you're worried about their fullbacks, those attacking midfielders, Ronaldinho and Lionel Messi, get them to chase back and press them and win the ball. But try to funnel all of their play through the middle if you can. So stay wide with those players, force them to play through the middle, and then win the ball back with numbers in the middle. So once again, opting for 2 build-up players with a destroyer in the middle of that central defence. Ahead of them, 3 orchestrators, 1 box-to-box midfielder, and then either a creative playmaker or classic number 10. Doesn't really matter too much what you want going forward. Just make sure they are offensive-minded. And then up top, I think I would opt for a goal poacher, because there's not going to be too many crosses into the box, especially with 5 defenders. It's going to be very, very difficult to find your way through there. But this is probably the way I would go about it. The other thing you could do is have 2 hole players in those attacking midfield positions, and then up top you could have a classic number 10 to just drop off and let those hole players break past their sort of defenders, which is going to make it very hard for them to mark as they break into the box. And finally, if they opt for a 5-2-3 wide formation, then I'd recommend going for the 4-5-1 with defensive fullbacks, defensive instructions on those fullbacks as well. Man mark their right wing forward and left wing forward positions, and you're just going to basically dominate them in that midfield area. Now, you could go for wide players here, or you could tuck those in to be attacking midfielders. So Lionel Messi and Vinicius Jr., just tuck them in if you want. If you want to like dominate that sort of central area, and you in that way, I would go for a goal poacher up top. But if you are going to use wingers, then perhaps consider using a fox in the box. But I'll quickly run through the play styles here. So 2 centre backs are build up. The wide fullbacks are defensive fullbacks. We've got Jack Wilshere and Rodri. They're both orchestrators. Ronaldinho, a creative playmaker. In the wide areas, roaming flank or prolific winger is absolutely fine here. Don't go for a cross specialist. Just think they'll be too isolated. And then, like I said, up top, if you've got wingers, go for a fox in the box. Else, if you've got those 2 wide players tucked in, then a goal poacher would be good. Now, you can counter every single formation and tactic available in game with this 23-man squad builder that I'm showing you here. So you want 1 goalkeeper, 2 build-up centre-backs, 1 destroyer centre-back, a left-sided and right-sided defensive fullbacks, 2 attacking fullbacks for left and right side as well, 3 orchestrators, 2 box-to-box midfielders, 2 prolific wingers or roaming flanks for the left-hand side, and 2 prolific wingers or roaming flanks for the right-hand side, 2 creative playmakers, 1 hole player or classic number 10, 1 goal poacher, 1 fox in the box, and 1 target man. Now, you're probably wondering that there's 3 omissions here, and the first is the anchor man, and that's because he doesn't offer enough offensively. There's no midfield destroyer, because I find that they just disjoin your formation because they charge around so much when you don't have possession of the ball. And this is going to make it easier for advanced players to pass through using 1-2s. Similar to box-to-box midfielders, but they're not as bad. Also, destroyers tend to not be all that great on the ball or offensively, so that's why they're excluded. And the reason for the deep line forward, the fox in the box is equally as good in the build-up, but way better for receiving crosses into the box. So that is it, ladies and gents. That is my ultimate counter formations and tactics video. It took me ages to pull together. It's been over many months of playing different formations and trying different things. So yeah, don't forget to smash that like button if you don't mind. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.